Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome wherever you are joining us from in the world. We're thrilled to have you here today. You're on USA Global TV and radio. Our show is the Film and Music Show, and I am your host, Dr. JACALYN KERBECK. I am the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network. My co-host, Madeleine Chan, has the day off, so we send her her best. And we have a special guest who's also one of our team members here. It's Wednesdays with Jenetta Barry. So if you haven't been over to our YouTube channel, please go over to USA Global TV and radio, and you can type in Jenetta Barry and you can see all the shows that she's been in. So today she is joining us to talk a little bit about her experience and her career in the entertainment industry. Let's welcome her to the program. Hi, Jenetta.
Hello, Dr. JACALYN. Infamous Wednesdays, I think it should be.
I like it. I like it. We have a lot of fun and share a lot of good information to educate our followers. Seems like an office. It doesn't, though. So, Jenetta, you're joining us from Kenya, from East Africa. And you were here before talking a little bit about your parents and their role in the entertainment industry and their experience. And today we're going to hear a little bit more about that. And then we're going to dive right into you and your work. So tell us, for people who didn't see the first episode, tell us what they missed.
I think I'm going to sneeze. So if I do sneeze, please bear with me, and everybody can go bless you together. Now I've said it, it probably won't happen, so that's good. Where to start in that? My mum grew up in London and trained ballet with a famous Sadler's Wells ballerina called Phyllis Bedell's. And so that's where her theatre journey started. And she went onto the West End stage at the age of 16 for the very first time. She did a lot of the pantomimes in the West End, but she did do other things like the musical Showboat, which is set in Mississippi with the boats on the river. A beautiful musical. She was in that. She was in a production which, as a full opera or operetta, is called Die Fledermaus from Germany, but they'd anglicized it, and she was in that production on the West End, and it was called Gay Rosalinda. And the costumes in that, when I look at those photographs, I mean, beautiful, beautiful costumes. She was one of the very first, if not the first, to do flying ballet in the West End for one of the pantomimes. She was supposed to be a fairy, and she went all over the place, all over the stage, doing ballet. I mean, Peter Pan was the first to fly on the stage in the West End, but actually to dance and fly is quite a feat. So she was one of the first to do that in the West End. And then the Second World War broke out, and she actually enlisted to the WAFs, the Women's Air Force, and ended up on a top secret part of Britain as a radar operator. So she tracked all the German planes coming over from Germany to Britain, and she was sworn to not tell anybody what she was doing. So it was quite a thing. She actually had her 21st birthday there down in Cornwall, in the middle of doing all of that. And once war had finished, she decided she really couldn't take UK. It was really, really tough. There was no heating, very little food on rations, and it was just an awful, awful place to be. And, you know, so much of London was in ruins from bombing, so it was depressing on top of it all. So she hopped on a boat and went to Cape Town and met my dad on that boat, on the Cape Town Castle, and they went to Cape Town. Mum went to be in the second show ever held at His Majesty's Theatre in Johannesburg. She was one of the leads in that, with some very well-known, at the time, South African actors and singers and so on. So that was her introduction to South Africa. And then Mum and Dad decided that they'd start their own review company in Cape Town. It was a very successful review company, and in fact Dad placed 3 people in that company on the national map. Two of them became very well-known actors. One became a film actor, and an absolute heartthrob with big blue eyes, and everybody used to go, "Oh, Joe Stewardson, such a heartthrob." And the other one was a stage actor, and the third one became a very well-known radio announcer on what was then known as Springbok Radio. So that all came from Dad and Mum. And then eventually Dad was transferred up to East Africa, to Nairobi, with Alexander Films. Now, in all that time in Cape Town, he'd been with True Tone Records, 20th Century Fox, just so many different scenarios that, and he was with African Consolidated Theatres as one of their directors. And in fact, Dad's pantomimes in South Africa, people travelled far and wide to come and see them because he had absolutely stunning magic in them. By way of example, my mum was Cinderella in one pantomime, and she was there in her rags. And we're talking about the mid-1950s here. So she's standing with the broom in her rags, and then with a puff of smoke, there she was in this beautiful, beautiful crinoline ball gown. So my dad was quite amazing, really. And he was sent up to Nairobi with Alexander Films, South African company. And at the time of independence in Kenya, because it was a South African company with apartheid, well, certainly not connotations, they weren't that way inclined, but because it was from apartheid South Africa, they had to leave and go back. And Mum and Dad said, no, they're staying. And that's when Dad bought a gramophone pressing factory and a studio and took on the resident band. And the rest is history there as well, because some very famous songs have come from Dad's studio. And one of them has been sung by Brothers Four, Pete Seeger, Harry Belafonte, Miriam Makeba. Some of our viewers and listeners in the States probably don't know Boney M, but they're very well known in Europe and UK. And another song by the Tremolos, who were a UK pop group in the 60s. They took another song, and that song was on the UK charts late 60s for 6 weeks in the top 10. So, you know, Dad's left an incredible legacy. And with that, I grew up in theatre, in Nairobi, in amateur, semi-professional and professional. And Mum and Dad, apart from directing, they were also theatre critics. So it was an incredibly rich background.
Whoops, sorry, I didn't know you were stopping there. Yeah, amazing. I was like,
I thought I'd gone on enough and give you a chance to say something.
So did you feel any pressure, you know, with your parents who are so talented, that you had to follow in their footsteps?
Not really. It was, you know, as a family, if one of us was involved in a show, we all got involved in whatever capacity. So if we weren't on the stage, then we'd get involved backstage. My father was a great believer in that it wasn't always about literally being in the limelight. So Dad did a lot of the sound on a lot of the shows. Mum often was the prompt in shows. I was a little bit young to help behind, but if I wasn't in a show, I was at every single rehearsal, watching, taking it all in, getting the innuendos of it all. And if I was on there, my dad would spend a lot of time coaching me and giving me subtle things to do on that stage, which would stand me out from the others. He was very clever like that. So no, there was no pressure at all. And of course, I grew up training ballet, which is another story I'd love to share tonight, with a Russian ballet mistress. And the backstory, her name was Madame Zerkovitz, and the backstory was that she was related to the Romanovs. And she trained ballet in Russia with the Romanovs. As a family, they would go off with the Romanovs on family, in summertime to Siberia, and they were that close. And when she was 16, the Russian Revolution broke out, and her family managed to get out via, I think it was Denmark, through to Germany. And she ended up in Germany and met her Russian husband, who happened to be a butcher. Can you believe it? So this beautiful ballet dancer who joined various companies. I think she was with the French ballet at one stage, and then Germany, married a Russian butcher. And they had a son. And then Second World War broke out, and I think Costa was actually of Jewish background. So he went through to Turkey, and Madame stayed on a little bit longer in Germany and then joined him in Turkey when it got a little bit too difficult. And the story I've always known all my life was that from Turkey, they managed to get to Palestine in those days and get on a refugee boat from Palestine to the port of Mombasa in Kenya. And then they were shipped up to Savo, which is a game park that I've just cycled through, into that refugee camp. And the Jewish fraternity in Kenya came through and gave jobs to all those people who were stuck in the refugee camp, regardless of who they were. And so Costa, Madame's husband, was put in charge of a processing meat factory on one part of Kenya, and Madame was sent to the other part, to a school in the Rift Valley, very close to where I am now, known as St. Andrew's School, to teach German and French, because of course, being in the Russian courts, they spoke French there. So she was fluent in French and fluent in German, and obviously very fluent in Russian too. And so she taught German and French until she persuaded them that she needed to teach the girls ballet as well, which she did. And then there was another very interesting man who had managed to get out of Europe and get safely to Kenya too, an amazing musician and conductor called Nat Kofsky. And Nat headed up the Kenyan or East African Conservatoire of Music there, and organized for Madame to come through, and they built her as part of the new buildings for the conservatoire, the most magnificent sprung floor ballet studio with wall-to-wall mirrors everywhere in the early 60s. Quite something for Kenya in those days. And it's with that rich background that I started learning ballet. Dad did all the sounds whenever Madame put on a theatrical production. And so that was that background. But the story of Madame doesn't end there, because I've been gathering notes and I've got all her photo albums here now. I've been very, very lucky to be given that really prestigious task, really, of making sure that they're kept safe. And in about 4 years ago, I decided to do a little bit more investigation towards my book. And we found out that at that time, 4 years ago, just released 50 years after the war, that actually Madame and Costa were British spies. And that's why she'd had to get out of Germany, and he was spying from Turkey. And then it got too hot there. I think somebody had got on their trail, and the British government had got them out of Turkey to Palestine and got them out on a boat in safety. So what a story, from the Russian bourgeois courts right through to a game park in Kenya, through to this beautifully sprung ballet studio in Nairobi. And from there, Madame put on the most magnificent shows that she made the stories up. She'd come into Dad's studio and she'd sit there and she'd say, okay, Charles, she's very Russian, and Charles, which is my dad, we take Debussy here, hear that note, cut it there. And then she'd say, now Tchaikovsky, you hear that note, cut it there, put them together, same note. She just knew, incredibly talented lady, and how to make fire look like fire with people being the fire, or water look like water with people looking, in a time and age where it wasn't so easy to do, and certainly not in a country where it was easy to do and access that sort of thing. She had more theater in her than I mean, in her little finger, than I have in my whole body. She was amazing. So that's the backstory on Madame Zerkovitz, Madame Vera Zerkovitz. And a lot of her students ended up getting into Europe, into top schools, and performing all over Europe. One of them even became a bluebell in Paris. So it's quite a story.
Definitely a story. And thank you so much for sharing it. It's nice to learn even more about you and your background, your family. It's fabulous. And I think you have some photographs you're going to share with us. Is that right?
I have. I'll show you some of her ballets. I think that's probably the best. The first one I'll show you is this. This is the Bluebird Ballet, and there was the bluebird plus bread and milk and the cat, and all in the house at the time that the bluebird flies in and says we have to rescue the princess. And so I was one of the main characters in this ballet, and I must have been about, I'd say about 9, no, I'd be a little bit more than that, about 10 years old. And this costume my mum made, just to find it, there it is. Look at that.
Wow, look at that. That's amazing.
Yeah. That's my mother's sewing. It's a white leotard and white tights, and then she got the fur and did all that padding. And yeah, so that was the one. And then in another ballet, I was Alice in Wonderland. Mum made my Alice in Wonderland costume, but she didn't make the bunny rabbit. It was already in existence. I think another mother had made it, but you can see the standard of
I love it.
Isn't it amazing? So yeah, that let me see if I can find some more. They're all together, so it should be easy to find. Oh, here's all the parts that went in search for the princess who had, I think it was the princess, or I'm maybe getting ballets mixed up. I think it's to do with those 2 children who had been orphaned so long ago. It just goes to show how you forget. But here's the main cast. These were the characters that were in the kitchen when the bluebird flew in and said, we've got to help these two orphaned girls. So the girl on the far right in the tutu is an Italian girl I went to school with called Sonia Sensati. And there's the dog was in the kitchen. She was Sugar. Sonia was Sugar. And on the far left, that's Milk. And Water is behind Sonia. And the two mice in the kitchen. So there was the dog, the cat, the mice, Sugar, Water, Milk, all went in search to rescue these. I remember now, the two girls had been abducted by some evil force, and you can see they've got patches on their dresses. So you can see even those costumes are really quite magnificent if you think about it.
They absolutely are. And Jenetta, are you in touch with any of these people?
No, we've all gone separate ways around the world. It's just so interesting how it's all gone by the by. I've got bits of the program here. Oh, this is where I was part of a dream.
I think it's the same picture that we're seeing.
Yes, just about to show you the new one.
Okay.
So this one is part of a dream. It's a color, in 1960s and 70s, color wasn't where it is today, of course. And that's me on the far right. And in the middle is the girl that was Sugar in the last one. We're a little bit older here. This ballet was called The Enchanted Planet. And we were part of a dream that was the princess was dreaming, if I look at it that way. So it's amazing how, here we go. We're in the same, it's a shocking photo, but it gives you a soupçon of what it's all about. So here we were spring fairies. So that's me in the middle and Sonia's on the right. And actually Susie Emmett, I'm still in touch with. She's in UK. She sadly she's in the far left. She's to my right on our left. And okay. Susie I'm still in touch with. She's unfortunately had her only child was hit on his bicycle, and so she's got dealing with him for the rest of her life. Very special boy, actually, man now. So that's Susie. She's in UK. I have no idea where Sonia is in the world now. And let me see if this one I think you'll enjoy this one. This is in the land of a grandfather and grandmother. She wanted to take people to the land, places where there were different lands. So there's the land of the unborn children. This is the land of grandfathers and grandmothers. And in fact, in the middle there, that's Susie Emmett again, who I was just telling you about, right in the middle there. But behind her, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, is a Victorian looking grandmother. Can you see behind her?
Yes.
There? That's my father. My father dressed up as the grandmother, and my brother dressed up as a grandfather. And
where's your brother?
So my brother's to his right, but you can't see him properly. You can only see his arm. And at one point, because these little girls and boys are doing the polka, and when they finish doing the polka, then the grandmother and the grandfather did the polka as well. So my father and brother were polkaing around the stage, and everybody thought he was a grandmother. He looked really authentic. It was really quite something, quite a thing.
Jenetta, are you in this picture?
No, I'm not in that dance. That's one dance I'm not in. And all these ones are upside down, so I can't show them to you because they've been quickly scanned, and I haven't had a chance to get them into order yet. But I'm just going to have a quick look and see if there was always Russian dancing in them. So you'd have Russian dances, and often there was a wicked Tsar. Can you believe it? In actual fact, going back to Susie, she became, after I left and went to University of Cape Town Ballet School, Susie became Madame's top dancer. She was the lead in another ballet all the years later. This one is actually Sheila in the middle here, and it's Sheila and Susie again.
Can you share
Sheila,
it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just about to share it now. It's finding all the bits and pieces. Okay, so this is a black and white one. This is from the ballet production The Legend, and in actual fact, that is Sonia Sensati again on our left, and Susie to the right, and that's Sheila Barker in the middle. And Sheila's here in Nairobi. She went on to teach ballet all over Kenya, and in fact, she also went to University of Cape Town Ballet School long before me. She's quite a bit older than I am. And she's the one that's entrusted me with all Madame's albums now, because she travels so much. So I've been made the ward and the keeper. So that gives you an idea of yeah, I mean, it's just amazing what Madame was able to do in those times and days. But one of the, here's a picture of her. This is her in latter years. And I will get there. Here she is. She was actually a very beautiful woman in her younger years. She got quite cross and crotchety as she got older, and a lot of people were very scared of her. I mean, I can remember walking in on her Little's class, you know, like 4 years old, and there were puddles of pee on the floor because these poor little mites of 4 years old were absolutely terrified of her, you know, with this Russian accent. But she, you know, it was really intriguing. We call them Madame-isms. So she had this thing about the word bottom, because she thought it was a swear word. I don't know if in Russia in polite circles you didn't mention bottoms. I don't know what it was. So we would be at the bar, you know, doing our exercises, and she would say, tuck in the derrière, which in French is the behind, derrière. So we'd have to tuck in our derrières. It was never, ever the bottom. If you said the word bottom, she just about had a hissy fit. So then she was asked to choreograph a piece for Midsummer Night's Dream at the Kenya Girls High School. They were putting on Midsummer Night's Dream. Of course, Madame didn't study Shakespeare in Russia. So she said, yes, she'd go and choreograph this piece. And she arrived, and the director was saying, oh, Madame, thank you so much. Now, this is what's happening on stage. Bottom is going here, and then bottom is going there, and then bottom will sit over there, because those of you who don't know Midsummer Night's Dream, the main character is called Bottom. So Madame stood there and she went, bottom? What is this bottom? And she, no, Madame, it's the main character. And she swept out, and she refused to choreograph that production. Absolutely refused. And the other wonderful story with Madame that I think people will appreciate, when Hair came out in the West End in the 1960s, late 60s, Madame was great in going over to London and getting all the latest steps, choreographed steps in London shows. And Costa, her husband, as I mentioned to you, was a butcher. So he had no theatre in his blood whatsoever. I mean, we would be rehearsing at 11 o'clock at night, and Madam saying she'd get really cross and she'd say, "You stupid girl, what are you doing?" And then Costa would be at the back of the theatre and go, "He's had enough now." And he'd go down and he'd take her by the scruff of the neck and say, "We are going home now." And she's being pulled up the aisle saying, "Do another pirouette and then a jeté." So she gets to the hair production, the production in the West End. She gets front row seats so she can see every single step that she can pick up in this modern choreography. And here's Costa sitting there going, because he doesn't want to be there, he thinks it's so stupid. And of course, hair opens up and everybody's got no clothes on.
Oh, I never saw it.
Yeah, they were naked in the original production.
Wow.
And, yeah, absolutely. So Costa's sitting there and his eyes are getting bigger and bigger. And all Madam's looking at is all the footwork. She doesn't care that they've got no clothes on. Until one of the guys comes down off the stage and plonks himself on Madam's lap. Absolutely naked, butt naked.
Wow. Amazing.
And
So
that
what'd
was
she
it.
do?
Well, she was fine. She was sort of saying, "Get out my way, I want to see this." And Costa, of course, said, "This is enough. We are going home now." Picked her up and she said, "But Costa, I have to see these movements." So that was the sort of upbringing I had in ballet. Then, of course, I was in other shows as well. There was, I'm just trying to see if I can find it. Gypsy Baron I showed you last time, but Fiddler on the Roof was another one. But here, this was Sound of Music when I was 9. So I wasn't only in ballets, I was in musicals and plays as well. I haven't got all the photos for these, but this one I have got. Actually, they're sitting in a storeroom in another country. I must go and get them. So have you got that? Have I shared that to you? Yes. So that's the Sound of Music. Now, what would happen in Kenya was they would bring the director of that particular show from the West End. They would bring them through to Nairobi. They would direct or produce, the production there with us and for us. Some of the actors got paid, which made it semi-professional. And the payment to that West End director was to give them a 3-month free safari around the whole Kenya. Can you imagine?
No, I cannot.
So we had West End directors lining up to come out. Fiddler on the Roof was one of them. I was Tavia's youngest daughter in Fiddler on the Roof. And of course, here I'm on the far left there as Gretel, the youngest von Trapp child. And,
you were great.
And there was always 2 casts being children. So we were cast A, and the people behind us are cast B. And you were asking, who am I still in touch with? There are 2 people there. The girl next to me, actually, I think she's living in Zanzibar now. Her name is Pauline Boswell. And then behind her, and over one, you can only just see her head, is Jackie Holt. And Jackie still lives here in Nairobi. So those are the only 2 I am in touch with. That's it. All the rest have gone their ways around the world.
That's great that you're in touch with 2 of them. That's, yeah.
It is.
I love these pictures.
Well, they're different. They're definitely different. And as I say, I've done Oliver. I was the lead in Oliver. In fact, that was the last show I did at 16 at the Kenyan National Theatre. And then we left for me to go to University of Cape Town Ballet School and Music School. Those days I had quite a good, in fact, a very good singing voice. I've unfortunately not kept it up. So, at 64, it's taken a bit of strain. But it was good in those days. And so I left. And that's where that story, we had Kez on our show almost last night, where all these years later, 4 years ago, I was invited to go and dance again at the Kenya National Theatre. And I'd been 16 when I'd last been there. And in that time, the theatre had gone into rack and ruin. There were hobos living in it at one stage, druggies and all sorts of things. And then it's been refurbished. So this show, it was a dance show. And we adults danced to dance. And as I entered that theatre, I knew that something significant was going to come out of it. Because some of you who might have been following me might know the story of my daughter Jenny, who died at 16 to suicide. And the correlation of the number 16 and numerology, where you bring everything down to one digit, 1 and 6 is 7. And a dream I got where all Jenny's birth dates and death dates add up to 7 and 9, and she was 16 when she died. So when I walked into the theatre and went, oh, I was 16 when I last performed, and I went, there's the 16. And we did the whole show, and I'm very mindful that when these signs start happening, you don't force them. So I went, well, whatever happens, happens. And we came to the last performance and nothing had happened. And I went, okay, well, whatever. And Kez, who we featured last night on our Global Adventure show, because she is the most incredibly knowledgeable zoologist on rhinos, is also a dancer. And she danced in this show with me. And we were crossing the stage as the stage crew was striking the second set and playing music. And we got halfway across, and Jenny's song that she absolutely was attached to at the time of her death, called My Immortal by Evanescence, is actually about suicide, started playing. And it's such a beautiful song. And I stopped and I said to Kez, you're not going to believe this. This is Jenny's song. And she listened to it and she said, but it would choreograph so beautifully. And we went upstairs to the bar and the restaurant upstairs at the theatre and told everybody. And Arnie Umion, who we are featuring next month on the 10th of October for World Jenny's Day, he said, we've got to put on a production on suicide and depression. This is a sign. And we did. And that's Insight, the production that we're looking to franchise worldwide now. It was birthed in that theatre all over and around the number 16. So what a synergy that's been as well. And we're going to feature it a little bit next month on the 10th of October for World Jenny's Day as well. And Arnie and Juliet was also in Insight. Beautiful, beautiful dance. They're going to bring their dance company to perform on the 10th and then talk Insight afterwards. So what an amazing journey it's been with theatre and dance in Kenya for me and for others.
Wow, what an incredible story that you shared today. Thank you so much. It was really fascinating. And I think the pictures really add a lot of depth to it. So I'm so glad that you saved them. You've got to go and get the other ones from the storage unit.
I have to, because, it's not in Stuart's highest interest. They're with my son, Stuart. It's not in his value system. So I just don't want them to be suddenly given away or chucked away or something because they're moving. So it is on my list to make sure that they get safely back to me before anything else. So maybe, who knows, in a show to come, we'll show some more.
I would really love that. Thank you so much, Jenetta. We have your banner here. If you would please let people know how to reach out to you, that would be great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. JACALYN. Well, one of the ways you can reach out to me is the Epiphany Process. And that's the process that I researched and studied and applied to myself and walked the walk and talked the talk after I lost my 16-year-old daughter, Jenny. And I've helped hundreds of people all over the world online with that process. And you can get hold of me there at my email address, Jenetta, JENETTA, at theepiphanyprocess.com, or visit the epiphanyprocess.com website, and you can contact me there. There's a form there. Or you can get hold of me at my WhatsApp number, which is +44, which is the UK code, 777-423-0464. But in terms of this show, World Jenny's Day is the one that I'd love to invite you to step in and come on an amazing journey with me, with us, with Dr. JACALYN, with some amazing performers, all happening on the 10th of October. Jenny died on World Mental Health Day, which is the 10th of October. So we now have World Jenny's Day, and we use it to celebrate mental health wellness rather than to discuss how to fix broken people, because I don't believe any of us is broken. I just believe we're missing life skills. And so we've got performers from all around the world. We've called it Where in the World is World Jenny's Day? And we've got Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Hong Kong's just come on board as well. So we've got Hong Kong, Ghana, Kenya, Wales, Germany, UK, and US and Canada. And it's going to be the most amazing celebration with some unbelievably talented people sharing to uplift the world on that day and make people realize there are always solutions if you're feeling challenged or compromised. Always. So I'd like to invite you, if you'd like to get involved, come and speak with me. If you'd like to perform, we've got only a few slots left. We really only have a few slots left. So if you would like to perform, then chat to me as well. And if you'd like to be on the day, guess what? It's here on the USA Global TV and Radio platform. And that will be shared with you. It's always there. You can go onto the website, you'll find it there. We'd love to have you join us. We've got people already telling me it's 17 hours, by the way, that we're performing for from all around the world. And we've got people saying they've booked off their 17 hours. Some have taken leave. They're putting their feet up. They're having their teas and coffees brought to them because they want to be part of this incredible day. So if you'd like to get hold of me, again, it's Jenetta at the Epiphany Process or worldjennysday.com, and that's JENNYS, worldjennysday.com. And thank you, Dr. JACALYN.
Thank you very much, Jenetta. And thanks to each and every one of you for watching or listening. We really do appreciate it. We're signing off now. For our next show is coming up, The Wise Ones with Red O'Loughlin. So please do stay tuned wherever you are. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio, please do subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our family. Thanks again. We'll be back shortly. Bye, Jenetta. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Mwah.
Mwah. Bye.